Lesson 1, topic quadratic equations. Learning target, I can solve a quadratic equation by performing inverse operations. So first off, some academic vocabulary. We have squares and square roots. So to read a square, we pronounce this as x squared, or we can say x to the second power. And what that means is we're just multiplying something by itself. So you can see our examples. We have 3 squared, which is 3 times 3. So 3 squared would be 9. We can also do that with negative numbers. So negative 4 squared would be negative 4 times negative 4. A negative times a negative is a positive, and that would be 16. So something that is squared always comes out as positive, because when we multiply a positive times a positive, we get a positive, or if we multiply a negative times a negative, we get a positive. So then square roots are the inverse or the opposite of squaring a number. So we say this as the square root of x. So we would read this as the square root of 9. So the square root of 9 is 3 because 3 squared is 9. So 9 squared means what number, if I multiplied it by itself, would make 9? Well, 3 times 3 makes 9, so the square root of 9 is 3. And then the square root of 16 is 4. Now for both of these, they also have another answer, which is the negative version. So 3 and negative 3, 4, and negative 4, because as you can see, negative 4 times negative 4 also gives us 16. So with square roots, there are always 2 answers. So you can see below on your chart, we have the square root of perfect squares, and that just means the square roots that are going to come out to be nice, pretty integers, because other numbers have square roots, but they come out to be decimals, and we're going to talk about those in just a minute. So we are going to solve this quadratic equation. Now a quadratic equation is quadratic when it has a square, so x squared. So right here you can see we have x squared, and that makes it quadratic. So we're going to solve this equation, and to do that we have to follow a couple steps. Our goal is to get the x squared all by itself. So we're going to undo the addition or subtraction. So we have minus 5 there, so we're going to undo that with a plus 5 on both sides. So I get x squared equals 25. Now I want to know what x is, not what x squared is. I want x equals and then a number. So to do that, we have to undo x squared with its opposite, which is a square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I'm going to take the square root of x squared, and I'm going to take the square root of 25. Now the square root of x squared is just x. That's why we're taking the square root on both sides. It's like undoing addition with subtraction. We're undoing the square with the square root. And then I just have to figure out what the square root of 25 is. And if you want, you can go back to that table that I gave you, and it will have the answer on it. So we look here at our square roots of perfect squares. We know that the square root of 25 is 5 and negative 5. So I can say x is equal to 5 and negative 5. Because 5 times 5 equals 25, and negative 5 times negative 5 also equals 25. So let's try 2 more examples. I'll remind us of our steps. We have x squared plus 8 equals 80. So first step is to get the x squared alone. So we're going to undo that plus 8 with the opposite, which is minus 8 on both sides. We get x squared equals 80, take away 8 is 72. So now remember, I want to know what x is, not what x squared is. So I need to undo x squared with that square root. So I'm going to take the square root of x squared, and I'm going to take the square root of 72. The square root of x squared is just x, so now I just have to figure out what the square root of 72 is. If you look at your chart, it's not on your chart, so we're going to need to use our calculator. So to get the square root, we're going to hit 2 buttons. The first one we're going to press is this blue button, the second button. And then the second button that we're going to hit is this button right here that says x squared. And if you look, you can see the little blue square root symbol in the corner of that button. And then you'll see the square root symbol pop up on your calculator. You'll type 72 underneath it. You'll press enter and you get a decimal approximation. So when you have a decimal answer, you have two options. You can either write your answer as the decimal. So we would have 8.4. So we could say 8.4 and don't forget the negative one. Or you can just say x is equal to the square root of 72 and the negative square root of 72. Both answers are completely acceptable. One more example here. We have x squared plus 8 equals 3. Again, we want to get x squared alone, undo the addition and subtraction. So I'm going to undo plus 8 with minus 8. And I'm going to get x squared equals 3, take away 8 is negative 5. So I have x squared equals negative 5. So now I want to get that x alone, because I want x all by itself. I just want to know what x equals. So to do that, we have to undo x squared with its opposite, the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Square root of x squared is just x. The square root of negative 5, well, let's type that into our calculator. So again, we're going to hit the blue button and then the x squared button, and we're going to type negative 5. Now, when you press enter, you're going to get an error because we cannot take the square root of a negative number. If there's a negative underneath the square root, we don't have an answer because nothing times itself is going to give us a negative number because a positive times a positive is a positive and a negative times a negative is also a positive. So there's never a time that we're going to get a negative number there, which means all we have to say is no solution. One last problem, write and solve the quadratic equation. The area of a square carpet is 144 square feet. So I know that the area of this carpet, all the area on the inside is going to be 144 square feet. So that's my answer. I know my answer is 144. The area of a square carpet, well, area formula is side times side or side squared. So side squared equals 144. I would like you to solve that equation and then answer in Edpuzzle.